Alrighty, so this is one of those videos that I wish I never had to make, but we all sort of get to one of those points in our career sometimes where things don't work out. Unfortunately, at the start of June, end of May of this year, I discussed with Penta stepping down from my position. There's multiple reasons why I thought that was the best option, and this was also seconded by several of my teammates who thought that our cohesion, our synergy just wasn't on point anymore. So I hope this video clears up some questions that I know a lot of you will have, and I myself wish I could answer 100%, but I will give you guys what I can. And I also hope that it clears up some of the confusions around the team, the performance, myself and my position, and the organization as well. I firstly want to start off by thanking Penta. The organization itself, not just the team, but the organization has been a huge integral part of my life for the past 9 months that I've been with them. They started off by moving me from Australia all the way over to Europe to begin work with them, and that was a huge step for me. And there's a lot of wild rumors out there about them. My experience with them has been nothing but positive. I know they made some changes in their structure and their management and everything, and ever since they did that, I felt like I have been a key family member of Penta, and the way that they've treated myself, the team, everything has been absolutely phenomenal. So I do want to do an absolute shout out to them to start off with. They really looked after me from moving me over Australia to Europe and work with them. The boot camps, are sending us to every competition we wanted to go to. During my divorce, moving me to Berlin, and really just solidly looking out for me, both as an employee and as a person. And that was a huge factor in my life for the past 9 months. So I really want to thank them. It was extraordinary the way that they looked after myself and the boys. I guess probably the best way to start is to talk about the past 9 months and I guess the journey that it's been. It's been a wild ride and I've enjoyed lots of it. There's a lot to be thankful of, but there was a lot of rocky parts to it as well. When I first joined Penta and I moved over, I was just the analyst. It was initially thought and believed by myself that I could do that part-time, work another part-time job, and that would work well with me. But it became apparent very quickly, especially with DreamHack Winter and then us making 6 Invitational and some shifts in the team, the removal of panics and whatnot, that my role as just an analyst wasn't really just an analyst anymore. I was taking on a heck of a lot more work than an analyst usually would. I was managing a lot of things, and I was doing a lot of mental coaching as well. So I guess my first area of discussion was DreamHack Winter. That was my first LAN. There was a lot of pressure on me to perform then because we needed to make 6 Invitational. That was our last chance to make 6 Invitational. I remember working my butt off day and night to get all of the analysis done, to get the boys ready, both mentally, in-game, out-of-game, etc. And I was really proud of them for pushing through the really long days that was at DreamHack Winter. And that was something I was really proud of, one of my really fond memories coming into that team and working with them then. Beyond that, we then moved on into the coming season. There was obvious tensions and issues that arose with the particular player being panics. That was one area of esports I don't think I was prepared for. I didn't want to remove panics myself. Unfortunately, he'd had tensions with other teammates for behavior and everything, and I couldn't change that. I wanted to, but I couldn't. And the thing that made me most disappointed about that was working with panics was great. He was coachable. He really wanted to get into mental coaching. Sometimes we'd spend entire weekends going through mental coaching together. We worked together like crazy. He wanted to know about his strengths and weaknesses. He'd asked me about it and never treated me any differently. So shout out to him. Unfortunate that, he undertook behavior that led to his removal from the team. But that was one area where it really got me, I feel, integrated into the team, synergized, and got a lot of my mental coaching out there, which I was really proud of. Then we brought in Blaz as his replacement. This was an area where I was a little bit worried because, as you know, when you make a roster move, it can phenomenally affect the synergy of a team. So I thought if I just did my absolute best to try and implement him and synergize him in the team, both mentally and in and out of game, as strongly as I could, the team would push into the following season, season 9, at a faster pace. I definitely worked my butt off then. I remember I was unfortunately at the time having some of my own private issues with my wife, and that became an area where I threw myself 110% into my work. The start of season 9 was a little bit rocky and fully expected with a brand new member of the team taking over a really key role. But Blaz worked hard. He did, and he listened to where his weaknesses were, and he made sure that he worked on them, and that was something I was really proud to be part of, because I got to see the change in him really quickly. So I would say the first half was rocky for us, but showed us a lot of our weaknesses. And then at the halfway part of the season, especially with Six Invitational, we worked hard, and I worked hard, and I was proud of the work that I was able to put through, even though I was going through so much immense stress in life. Going to Six Invitational, we almost did it. We almost beat one of the top 4 teams, Norengo. That was a tough one. I felt that slip away right then and there, standing behind them, going against Norengo for our second and last match of the groups. And I think probably what made that most disappointing for me was that we were so close and yet so far, and we got knocked down to a further place in the groups that I think was our actual skill level at that time. But when you're knocked out by a big giant by Norengo that they were at that time, you can be proud to say that you were mere rounds away from taking the match away from them, and that's what we were. And I felt that that was when the team had really peaked. Second half of season 9, we were absolutely blasting through, beating Team Empire, beating G2, beating every team that we came up against. Didn't matter their ladder standing, we had an answer for them. And I would say that that's when my strongest work came out. The boys identified with me that attack was their major weakness. They did step-by-step processes. I worked in and out, nights, mornings, everything with certain players to come up with how we could do step-by-steps, acronyms, counter-analysis, etc., etc. And I would say we were a really dominant force at the end of season 9, and something I can turn around and say I was really proud of. Unfortunately, right as season 9 ended, this bit is probably the most disappointing bit of my entire professional coaching career thus far, was that at the end of season 9, we had a player on our team who wanted to take an extended holiday. And what people don't understand is when you take a break from playing competitive gaming, your skill diminishes every single day that you're not on their training. And the training that we were putting in up until the end of season 9 was consistent, twice a day, plus meetings, plus counter analysis, plus strats. And you have a player who wants to take 3 full weeks off the game. I felt sorry for a lot of the team, because I actually wasn't part of the meeting where the discussion about annual leave and taking holidays took part. I'd actually booked my own annual leave from the end of when they decided this whole 3 weeks business, and I got told straight after their meeting that this particular player wanted to take 3 weeks. I had multiple people and players from the team come to me and say that they thought this would crumble and cripple the team. I agreed. I know what even a week break from competitive gaming can do to a player, let alone 3 times that. I would say I was as worried as a coach could be. I tried my very best to try and put a stop to it. But of course then threats were thrown out, and players started to get scared, and everyone just ended up agreeing, because I suppose when one player makes their mind up, it's very difficult to change their mind. And I didn't really quite have the control over the team that I would have wanted to be able to stop that decision being made. So unfortunately, those 3 weeks were taken. The players who didn't agree to the 3 weeks became quite withdrawn from the team during those holidays. It was very obvious that they were unhappy that this was happening, and I could feel the tensions bubbling instantly. I tried my best to let the players take that holiday. I mean, burnout's a very real thing. I understand it. and I tried to give them their time to refresh, you know, keep going. I thoroughly suggested to every player to continue their gameplay whilst they're on holidays where they could, continue practicing, playing what they could, coming to me if they had any issues at any point, because at that time I was moving from Switzerland to Berlin straight after my divorce, and I myself was going through a lot. So the stress was immense, and something I was super worried about. And upon their return from the 3 weeks, it was extremely clear that that 3 weeks had done severe damage to their gameplay and their team synergy. And I would say that at that particular moment that they took those holidays was the beginning of the downfall for the team and myself as a coach for Penta. I do want to say that wearing this jersey was some of the proudest times of my life in esports. I wore it with pride, and I still would if I could. But I do feel like once those 3 weeks have been taken and the team started to bubble away at each other, I feel, I couldn't do anything anymore. And a lot of people are going to turn around and say that, you know, I could have done something, but if you're not in that situation and you've never been in it, you don't know what it's like to have to go through trying to help 5 people who, I guess, aren't in the best of mind frames, aren't performing the way that they used to mere weeks ago. So that went downhill extremely quickly for the team, and something that I guess none of us knew how to counter. I think the players thought, because it was less than a month ago, or approximately a month ago, that the results were strong for us, that we could just instantly go back to it. I tried to let them know that with such time off, you have to put the hours in, and you have to continue to do the same thing you did back then, now. And then there seemed to be this attitude shift where every scrim there would be an argument and people pointing fingers at each other, and I didn't know how to help them stop that. There were some people in the team, unfortunately, especially post-holiday, who came to me and said that they didn't want to be mentally coached, that they didn't want to be coached at all. And when you have players of your team who say that they just want to do things themselves, or that they think that they can do things themselves, it's not only disappoints you because you can see their potential, but it also puts a massive break in the team, because I had multiple people on the team asking me, can we do this? What about this mental coaching? Or there's a lot of arguments. Let's sit together. Let's do a mental coaching session together. And I had to tell them I can't, because this player simply doesn't want to do it. I can't make players want to do something who don't want to do it. I can't force that upon people. If they want to get better, they have to want to get better. And that's the simpleness of esports, the simpleness of sports all over the world. And that disappointed me so greatly. And I think that's when I began to question whether or not I was effective anymore. For some of the players, I most definitely was effective, and I could work with them 110%. But it's a team game. It's a team game, Rainbow. And if you can only help 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 5, and you can't help all of them, there's still going to be this disjointedness on the team. And we had that over and over and over again for weeks and weeks, and scrim after scrim and meeting after meeting, of just arguments and pointing fingers and blaming. And it was to the point where I could see the team falling apart. I knew there would be a roster change months ago. I actually knew that the team would want to remove someone, because I had several members of the team speaking behind each other's back saying this person should be removed, we should move this person doesn't play good. And they all, unfortunately, were behind each other's back, and I was carrying all these secrets. They felt like secrets. I was carrying all these secrets that they were telling me, and all of this blame that they were blaming and pointing behind each other's back at everyone. And rather than, going and telling these players, I just held it and I went, you tell me, I'll carry your baggage. We don't have to yell at each other. And I thought that was the right thing to do, because I thought if I took all their anger, I took all their stress at each other that they had of each other, and I held it, and I didn't let them do it to each other, then maybe they'd re-synergize eventually. That was not what happened. And it's hard for me to think that if I had gone back and I had have said, instead of you telling me, maybe we should have a team meeting and we tell everyone. But instead, I think maybe I facilitated some of the talk behind each other's back, rather than forcing them to open up about their concerns about each other, rather than, I don't know. I don't have the answer, and it still does haunt me to this day that I probably may have been able to say or do something different, and I might have been able to change how it ended up, but I couldn't. So I guess after we got back, we had those weeks of trouble, severe trouble, in scrims, out of scrims. Season 10 starts and we're struggling heavily to win any games. So upon me informing the team that they couldn't keep pointing fingers and trying to change roles and blaming things that probably really weren't our actual problems in our gameplay or in the team, I started to get a lot of backlash from players. And there were several players who weren't undertaking the necessary behavior on a particular role with a particular operator or sets of operators that have particular roles in our strategies, and they weren't doing it. And because they weren't doing it, they weren't achieving the results that we should have been with that particular role, and therefore they asked to continually shift into roles that they preferred. And that's a rough thing to ask a team, because if you shift one person's role, that takes away this person's role and puts them on another role, and it forces them to conform with a set of operators and roles that they otherwise not been practicing with for the entirety of their time in the team or in their role or whatever it might be. And the players who requested role requests so that they felt more comfortable, or that they could get more kills, or that they could be in a more comfortable position on the roster than they were, heavily detrimented their teammates. They put their teammates in a really bad position, and that was something I fought against very, very sincerely, fought against role change on the team, especially with team members who had in-game callouts or were doing shot calling for particular things like execution and whatnot. To move their role to something that was not strong in their particular need for the strategy, I felt was selfish. And these players who moved in roles, they did it because they thought it would better the team, but in the end, it just made some players shine and others struggled. Made some players struggle, and the team began to fall apart even more than was already happening outside of the game, let alone inside of the game. So that was a massive factor of something I wish I had been able to stop, because I believe had we had stuck to the way that we had done things, 6 Invitational, end of season 9, the training we were putting in, the roles we had set, the step-by-step processes we had gone through and trained over and over again, we would have still been a top 5 EU team. And instead now, unfortunately, our performance has led us to the bottom, if not close to CL relegation very, very soon. With them consistently wanting to change things like roles, operators, strategies, there were moments in scrims where from one round to the next, an entire strategy was altered off the paper. It amazed me how many times different people on the team wanted to change a strategy that we had down on paper, was ready to go, had been used before and can work. And the point of the scrims was to work out where the holes in the strategy were. But instead, they wanted to change and change and change. And when you change a strategy and a role and operators and how you do things so much, you don't have a set strategy at that point anymore. And that's what happened to these players. And they're very, very capable players. They're veterans of Pro League, many of them. And to say that I saw them play in scrims and in official games a way that I'd never seen them play before, once we got back from that 3-week holiday, was sad. I felt sad that these players unfortunately couldn't operate at the level that they were capable of. And I wanted to try to give them that. As I said earlier, several members didn't want my coaching. They just wanted counter analysis and analysis of other teams. There was one point as well, and it was in May, where one of the team members came to me and said, the team doesn't want you to coach anymore, we just want you to do analysis. Instead of me speaking to the team and confirming that, I believed them. Which was a shame, because that's not something that player had discussed with the team. That was not something they'd agreed on. And so when I stopped doing a little bit of coaching, stopped mental coaching as much as I was, several other members of the team asked me what was going on, why I wasn't doing this, why I didn't work with a single person, you know, doing some cognitive behavior therapy or doing some kind of mental coaching. And I became confused. And I said to them, that's because I was told that you guys didn't want any more coaching, you just wanted analysis. And that's when I realized that there were people on the team who weren't speaking to their team. It was what they wanted and not what the team wanted. And I feel like I let down some of the boys by not checking with the entire team, not always checking to make sure everything was good for every one of them, not just for one of them, but for every single one of my players. And that's a shame that I didn't do that, because I really feel like that I could have worked stronger and more effectively with the team when we were at our weakest point. And these are things like my analysis, sticking to my analysis rather than doing mental coaching anymore, given the information I was given from a player. I was then a little bit withdrawn, I would say, from the team, given the fact that every piece of analysis that I did was delayed. I was told, especially when we went to Vegas, I was told that they wanted me to do analysis weeks in advance. I agreed. It would give us time to go through it, work out whether we wanted to alter a strat, to do a counter strat, and everything like that. And whilst I agreed with it, I couldn't actually do it, because every time I tried to do it in advance, the players wouldn't get back to me with what map they wanted me to analyze. So generally what happens is I'll do a map analysis, and I'll analyze which maps I think we should ban, which ones I think we should play, and you narrow it down to a map pool of 2 to 3 maps that then you counter analyze from your enemy for the upcoming game. And every time I did that, I'd supply it. I have so many screenshots, so many screenshots of me saying, hey, here's my map analysis, please get back to me ASAP. All you have to do is pick, out of the 4 maps I've given you, you need to pick 2 that you think we should play, and I will do a fake map ban analysis, and you can see how it would play out. If they ban this, we ban that, it would come down to these 2 to 3 maps. And I will analyze those 2 to 3 maps. Unfortunately, every time I asked, and every time I asked in TeamSpeak or in WhatsApp, our group chats, and I'd say, hey, here it is, it would get seen, but then no one would respond to me. And I felt like, oh, okay, well, I'll ask in TeamSpeak after the scrim, you know, let them finish their scrim, watching their scrim, giving them their feedback, and then the end of the scrim, oh yeah, we'll do it later. And sometimes I get my analysis done the day before our match. And I always felt like it was the most ineffective way to do a counter analysis, and it forced me to do, I think in total, because every single VOD that I go through takes over an hour, because I have to pause, take screenshots, write out in a round by round, I have to write out operators, I have to write out exactly their setups, etc. In a given day, if I had to do it the day before, because that's when I got given which maps I need to do, then it would take me 6+ hours, plus their scrims, plus any other work that an admin and managerial stuff I had to do. So those days were long, and it didn't have to be that way. And I told them it didn't have to be that way. And I think they lost faith in me because they expected someone else to give me the maps. I'm not sure. I don't know. And I wish I just kind of had taken charge at that point and said, well, these are the maps you're going to play and these are what you're doing. But I didn't want to interfere with what they wanted because we already had enough. We had enough tension on the team. We had enough misknowledge, pointing fingers, blame, and I guess I didn't want to add to that. That was already existing there. So I guess my position in the team from, I would say, November of last year, especially with DreamHack Winter, to the end of season 9, was when I can confidently say that I did my best work and I felt like I worked hard. Beyond that, I felt like I was in a confused mess of work. I tried my best to manage them. I tried my best to coach the people who wanted to be coached. I tried my best to give analysis when I was given the AOK for certain maps or certain games or what they wanted, which was often hard because a lot of the players believe we shouldn't counter-strat. Other players believe we should counter-strat. And that's a really confusing mix and flurry to put on a coach and an analyst who doesn't know whether or not they're even going to read their analysis. And a good example of that was recently when we went to DreamHack Valencia and tensions were so high, so incredibly high at the boot camp preceding this event and at the event. And it was so visible, the tensions between players and myself and certain players. And I had spent a lot of the boot camp prepping some detailed analysis of teams I knew we would go up against in our group and beyond our group. And I'd done map analysis on maps that I knew because it's a best of 3. You are easily going to be able to pick 2 of the 3 maps that you're very likely to play. And a key example of it is when we went up against Chaos, I'd done a really in-depth border analysis of how they set up on border. They'd played it extremely recently to the event. And I'd done an analysis, I had screenshots, I had everything. I had the counter adaptation, how to counter certain setup pieces that they had as part of their strategy. And one of those pieces was that they would run a Maestro in 90 with a shield and ADS, and they'd reinforce the sides of CCTV. And it was an off-meta kind of setup, one that really was key to my analysis and something that I said we can counter, but we need to do it this way, and we need to open the wall with our Habana so that they can't sit there, and we need to cook the ADS, and we can throw a nade up from the bottom of metal stairs, but we need to get rid of this spot, because if we don't, we cannot have any 90 control, and it's going to be extremely difficult for us to be able to push anywhere. When I gave them that analysis and I sent that through to them, it was my understanding that what would happen after that was they would alter their strategy to fit that particular hold. When we got into game, I asked some of the players what they planned on doing to counter that, whether they planned on doing what I'd written in the document or whether they planned on doing something that they discussed together. And I was told that they said, oh, we'll deal with it, we'll just ignore it. And I said, did you read it? And there were some players who had not read or had simply scanned over the many thousands of words I'd written for multiple maps against this team. And it was one of the most disappointing factors for me, because I knew the strength of Chaos. I knew we could counter them. I knew we could do it well, but when I watched them standing behind them, dying, multiple of them dying to this one aspect of the analysis I had highlighted, I had put in bold, I had put a screenshot, I had said how to counter it, and they kept dying to this one hold, down 90, and you know then that your job is not effective if players don't want to read your work, if players don't want to implement your work into their gameplay. And I think, even though I'd already decided before DreamHack Valencia that I wanted to be removed from the team and I wanted to step down, I think that was probably the most disappointing moment of my career with Penta and with the team. And that's a great example of where I could see my work not working anymore. I think most people are wondering when I actually stopped working officially for the team. Directly after DreamHack Valencia, there was, like I said, the highest tensions I think I've ever experienced in the team. I got on to Penta again to say that I would happily live out my contract and work for them until the end of the season, but that I felt that it wouldn't work beyond then. What I didn't realize was at the same time as me discussing stepping down from the team with Penta, the team was also having their own discussions about wanting me removed, which was not a surprise to me. The tensions were high. Certain players couldn't and didn't want to coach, and that's okay. And there was also discussions, which probably is the most disappointing factor about making this video and being part of this team. There was also discussions to remove Sebos from the main lineup. Now, when I heard about this, I was not surprised that the team had agreed that me stepping down was the best way to go. I was surprised about Sebos, extremely surprised. I have never come up against a team that would remove a player that so vehemently was consistent, was one of their main executive shot callers, clutched a heck of a lot of rounds, 1vX's, had undertaken roles for the team and been thrown onto operators and roles that he was not trained in, but did so anyway for the betterment of the team and did so well. He worked with me so heavily for the past, I would say for the past 4 months. Sebos was one of the most coachable people I have ever worked with, and I probably will ever work with. I have never seen a player come to me at 12 midnight every night after a scrim and go, all right, Jess, tell me, you watched that scrim. What do you think about this? How do you think I can be more dominant with my shot calling? How do you think I can do this? What about this? When I did this at this time, what do you think about this? We would spend hours every week, just him and I, working on mental coaching, dominant voice, shot calling for execution, of which he was moved on to that role because no one else wanted to undertake that role. And the ones who were meant to be on that role couldn't do it appropriately. And so he came to me to work on these areas of weakness. I've never seen anyone so keen to be a better player. He was the top 3 player in our team, both with stats, both overall for every single event for the past 5 months straight. Season 9, every single event we've been to, 6 Invitational, DreamHack Valencia, French League, he was a top 3 player consistently statistically. And I have every single one of my players' stats. Every single one of them. And I know exactly how great of a player he is, how calm he is, how respectful and professional he is as a player, as a person. And I have never been prouder to work with someone as I was with Ferenc. And to hear that the team wanted to change things up was not a surprise, as I said, was not a surprise that maybe a roster move needed to have happened, but to a top 3 player that was your main executive caller, who was the most calm under stress in the entire team, that worked more hours than I had seen any of them work, both with their coach, in and out of game, and on their particular roles. He had done so much with me, I can't even explain it. I have folders full of things he worked on with me, folders. And I can't say the same about many of the other players on the team. So to have had him put down to sub blew my mind, and I was so incredibly angry, upset, disappointed, and a whole other range of things, because to remove a player as strong and as consistent as him doesn't make sense, and I don't think it ever will for me. I don't think it ever will make sense. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why maybe Penta will struggle for the upcoming seasons, because they will have moved such a key part of their roster away from it. And I cannot give any more props to Sebos. If anyone wants to pick him up, you have you have a player who is coachable and workable and extremely flexible, and being moved from fragger to flex to full support in the range of 3-4 months over and over and over again, and still being as consistent as he was. It's an amazing player. He is honestly an amazing coachable player, and absolute shout out to him. I am so incredibly sorry to him that I could not save his position, because I know Siege is his life. So that was one area that I was not involved in. I was not involved in any of those discussions surrounding Savos, and I would never have condoned, never have allowed, nor would I have stayed in my job. Had I been happy and feeling fulfilled in my job and still effective as a coach at Penta, and they made that decision, I would have left my role. Because that's how vehemently against that move I was, and I still am. I know this has been a long video for many of you, and if you've stuck through the whole thing, thank you very much. I wanted to do it as a video because there was so much I felt I needed to get out that I'd kept so secret for so long, because my loyalty to this team was so strong. I never wanted anyone to see us as we really were, and that is a good thing, but it was also a bad thing, and it took a toll on a lot of us, myself included. And one thing I want to take away from my whole experience is that there are some really worthy players out there who will go far and deserve to go far, and there are some players who say things like, this isn't a real job, and if I wanted a real job, I'd go out and get one, which unfortunately was said to me multiple times during my career with Penta. I'm ashamed that I kept that secret for so long. I'm ashamed that I didn't do more to fix it. I'm ashamed I didn't take charge more. I'm ashamed of a lot of things, but I'm also proud of a lot of things, because my philosophy with that team was, I didn't just want to make them better players, I wanted to make them better people. And I think I got through to some of them, and I'm proud of the way that some of them are to this day, and to the others who are still growing, I wish them nothing but the best. I had loyalty, and I treated them like family. They were my family for 9 months. They really were. And just because they may not have treated me the same way back, doesn't mean I don't still wish them the absolute best. Yeah, I again want to thank the organization really strongly. My life has been as livable as it is because of that. I do want to thank the team. The opportunity I had with them was phenomenal. I saw a lot of things. I got to undertake a lot of things. I got to be part of a really cool part of esports. And sometimes things don't work out, and that's just how it is. But yeah, I think TLDR, to anyone who skips to the end, I haven't been working with Penta since the start of June. I have done absolutely no work with them beyond DreamHack Valencia. Any of the decisions, comments, anything made beyond the start of June have not been my doing. And I don't agree nor condone or want to say that my name is upon any of that. I love the boys. I wish them the absolute best. I really do. Their roster changes, their movements from the start of June onwards have all been through their own choices. And I think I will move on into the world of technology and criminology again. I'm not sure about my movements beyond this. I have several offers coming up, and I will sift through all those offers over the coming weeks, and there will be an announcement about what I plan on doing. But for now, content creation and continuing up with the whole JessGOAT brand is the way that I plan on going. But I appreciate all of you guys who have supported Penta, myself, all the boys, all the organization, esports and everything. It was a pleasure to be part of your community. It really was. And I'm sorry that I won't be part of it any further. I'm more than happy to be open to coaching offers internationally, as well as analyst positions. But do know that unless it does come with a sort of full-time salary or something to that effect, I may get better offers elsewhere. So I appreciate you guys a heck of a lot. It's been an absolute pleasure. I do want to say there's no need to start any drama over any of this. No need at all. So let's keep it as passive and as kind as we can and respectful. And thanks again, guys.